Good Friday morning, the first football Friday of the year, and I am so glad I am sitting here in the studio now because it's already been a morning, shutting down the westbound LIE. I am gripping the steering wheel, white-knuckling it as I'm listening to Al go, time for cool games, honking the horn, move it, let's go, get me to work. And then we get to work. We've got a new makeup girl today because Allie's doing a wedding, and I'm trying to tell her to speed up because I got to get into the studio because I got 6 commercial reads to do. So thank God it all got done, and I'm sitting here. We're talking about some goddamn football today with the Rams and the Bills and the Jets and the Giants in week 1. And, of course, we'll talk baseball because that's all we do around here is talk effing baseball all day long. So we will do that as well. But good morning, Boomer. I'm so happy to see you. It's this time of year. I've been waiting for it for a very long time. It's the best sport on the planet. We got a real game last night. We got a full slate this weekend, and I am fired up.
And I'm 1-0 in my picks. So
I'm 0-1.
And here we go. You shot out of a cannon this morning. I love it.
I haven't even had any caffeine, and I only slept like 3 hours.
I was going to say, did you just leave the Matt Martin poker tournament? I mean, because I got up and I left around 9 o'clock.
Well, the second that you left, I went all in on the worst hand possible.
Right.
And I was like, he's gone, I'm gone.
Could you imagine? So I said this to Matt last night, so I'm not saying anything out of school here last night. That was a great event last night.
It was awesome.
So it was at the Chateaubriand in Coral Place.
Yep.
Yes, and there were 800 maniacs there. Most of them Islander fans, of course.
Yeah.
And, I'm in a sea of Islander fans taking pictures. Very nice, because we all love hockey. Everybody loves hockey. That was there last night. We may be rooting for different teams, and, of course, my turncoat daughter, married an Islander. But I was just thinking last night, and I said to him, I said, man, Matt, could you imagine if you actually scored goals, how many people would show up? I mean, because it was packed. It was great to see everybody there last night. We had a ball. Did we not?
No, it was great. It really was.
Yes.
And I showed up a little bit earlier than the rest of the quote-unquote celebrities and walked into that sea of Islander fans, and I knew once I was getting a lot of requests to talk and pictures and everything else, that when you got there, people would be hanging off of your legs. And that's basically what happened. But everybody was so nice.
You know what? It was great. It was really great. It's for a great cause. They raise service dogs.
Yes, that's right.
Which is an awesome.
So does Eddie, but he doesn't have a charity.
It's an awesome cause, and so I'm proud of Sydney and Matt, of course, for spearheading all of that. But I mean, it was madness last night. But we did get to watch the opening part of the football game because they had the TVs on there.
That's
the Chateaubriand.
Chateaubriand.
And it was great to see Josh Allen do what he did last night. He's headed for an MVP this year, guys. I'm telling you, he threw a couple interceptions. One was not his fault, but those are probably going to make him sick. But you saw exactly what Brian Daboll had as a quarterback the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what you saw a freaking stud out there. So he led the team in rushing. He threw for over 280 yards, 4 touchdowns. If you didn't see the game last night, you missed maybe the best player in the NFL this year. He is dynamic. He's just different. You could see it. And when you watch Daniel Jones, and I hate to compare the two, and maybe it's not fair for Daniel, but when you watch the two, you'll see a difference. You see a kid last night that just is so in tune into the game and so relaxed and just doing what he does. And he's a mammoth of a football player, and he plays like that. And I'm just happy to see that they got off to a great start. I expected them to get off to a great start. I expect them to be the best team in the AFC this year, assuming that there aren't any significant injuries to this team. But that's the way you want to start if you're the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, this is the highest expectations for a Bills team since the Jim Kelly 90s years where they were going to back-to-back Super Bowls. So this is it for them. This is a fan base who hasn't seen it. They're fired up. We know how passionate they are, jumping on tables, lighting things on fire, punching each other in the face. This is their year, and this is where it has to happen because their quarterback, as you mentioned, is right at the top of his game. This is his prime. He's never been better. We saw him lose a playoff game where he might have been the best player in the game. Last year, he has come back, and he looked even better last night, even with a couple of picks. He still runs a little bit too much
but
for
that's
me.
him. But, he takes
But
off
he's so
and he makes
big.
plays. Yes.
He's so big and he's so durable that you don't worry as much when you see him running around as you do like Lamar Jackson. But yeah, this was a great start for him, and I'm sure Sean McVay is scratching his head after a Super Bowl championship year. He got his ass handed to him, and they were lucky for it to be 10-10 after the first half because they got the crap kicked out of them then as well, and then the second half just bared that out as it was 21-0 in the second half.
7 sacks for Buffalo. Von Miller's signing worked out at least for 1 week. He had 2 sacks last night against Matthew Stafford and his former teammates, so it seems like he's picked the right team. Look, we got a long way to go. I don't want to overreact. But
but everybody's been saying they were the best team.
Yeah.
And then they 31-10 against the defending champs. I mean, you got to at least respect it.
I don't want to overreact one way or the other towards either team. I mean, it's just because it was a little sloppy at times, and it looked like a bunch of guys that hadn't played at all in the preseason. And we're going to see a lot of that. And all I know is that as a former player, you want to start off the way that Josh Allen started off last night. I mean, that's what we all expected from him. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like Aaron Judge. We expect him to come into this season and have an MVP-type season, and he's having that season, and Josh Allen is starting what we all think is going to be an MVP season, starting out like an MVP. I mean, and we saw every aspect of who he is as a player. And this is what Brian Daboll is praying to God, that there is a little bit of that in Daniel Jones. But I just think, like I said, I don't want to compare him because
you can't. You can't.
But the point being is that that's the offense that he's going to be running here. But the thing is that you saw Josh Allen last night probably make about 10 plays that, are not scripted. They could call a play, and then they snap the ball, and then the play doesn't work. He rolls to the right. Somebody beats a guy down the right sideline, Steph Diggs, and then he heaves it down the field, or Gabriel Davis heaves it down the field. And that's a play that is, that's not in the playbook. That's just Josh Allen being the playmaker and not being overwhelmed and understanding what's going on the field. And that's what you're hoping for if you're Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka and Joe Shane.
I've heard so much of this with where Brian Daboll's going to come and get the best out of Josh Allen. I mean, the best out of Daniel Jones because he's got the best out of Josh Allen. That's not the conversation we should be having. The conversation we should be having is Brian Daboll needs to do what he did with Josh Allen for the next guy, because the next guy's going to get drafted, and he's going to get his hands on him early, like he got his hands on Josh Allen early, and then 3 years in, the guy's in the MVP conversation. You're not turning chicken salad from the chicken bleep. You're not doing it with Daniel Jones. It's for the next guy.
Well, I'm just saying.
And there's going to be a next guy next year.
Okay, that's next year, but the reality is that they have 17 games this year. And the other part of the reality is that, what are they going to get out of Daniel Jones? Let's put it that way. I mean, I'm just telling you, last night, Brian Daboll came from that team.
Yeah, it didn't look like they missed him.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
But again, as you said, Josh Allen's running a lot. 17-game season. Let's just hope that he makes it through the season. But you could also tell that the Rams were missing Andrew Whitworth, who retired in the offseason, their big left tackle who had been around for like 18 years.
Sure.
They may call him up and say, we need you back.
Sasquatch is his nickname.
Yeah.
Big old Andrew Whitworth with the Bengals for many years.
Yeah, I love Andrew Whitworth. He's like everybody would want him on their team. And every quarterback would want him.
Oh, Walter Payton Man of the Year, right?
He's a great dude.
Last year.
He's a great dude. And then he had been up for it for like 7 or 8 years or something. So he got it in his final year, and or Russell Wilson, I think, got it. So
okay.
It was 2 years ago when Andrew got it.
Okay.
So it was, he is a great dude. He is a great dude, and they missed him, and it was obvious last night.
Yeah. So Josh Allen, he makes his presence known. Will Justin Herbert? Will Patrick Mahomes?
Yes.
Will Russell Wilson in a new place do that? I mean, these are the questions that we have, and it is a little scary when everybody thinks a team is going to be very, very good, and then they come out and put that performance out. So I want to see some of the other teams that we're talking about that we expect to be very, very good, like the LA Chargers. That's another one that I'd like to see their first impression, and we are going to overreact to it because that's what we do. We haven't seen these teams in a long time. We haven't watched real football that has mattered. So these first games are going to give us that first impression, and we're going to overreact. But this AFC is going to be. I mean, I can't remember, and this might be a little bit of recency bias, but I really can't remember where there's been this many teams in a conference that you feel like, could go to the Super Bowl as we sit here in Week 1. Now, I know there's some teams that are favored more than others, but there's 3 in one division for crying out loud.
I only think there's one offshoot quarterback that has a chance to make it because his team is so good and because of the conference they play in.
Offshoot quarterback.
Yeah, so
Jalen Hurts?
Yes.
Okay.
Or maybe Jameis.
Yeah, famous Jameis.
Because I know that the Saints are kind of like a sexy, underrated pick. As a matter of fact, our big boss yesterday, Sean McManus, we had a meeting with them, and him and David Burson, and the question was, who's the most underrated team and who's the most overrated team in the NFL? He was just asking it out loud, and then we said, you want to sit with us on Sunday and ask us that? He said yes, and I said, well, we'll agree with whatever you say.
Sure.
But he was asking
laugh at all your jokes, too.
Yeah, right. I was trying to think. I think we all feel like in the AFC there are like 7 or 8 teams because they do have the alpha male at quarterback. Most of these teams went out and got 2 pass rushers. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons why Buffalo signed Von Miller was what you saw last night.
Absolutely.
That's why Chandler Jones and Max Crosby are in Oakland. That's why Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack are out for the Chargers. These are guys that change games and they put pressure on opposing quarterbacks, and that's why. When you take a look at some of these teams and you look at the quarterbacks, the coach, and the pass rush, you say, okay, these teams are going to be the teams. Does Kansas City really have that?
Well, I really think that they got
the
one of the best
players. Great quarterback.
Yeah, one of the best players I've ever seen at the position. I expect him to be great again, but they needed to get multiple championships in that window prior to having to cut guys on the defense. And it's just very, very hard to rebuild that defense every single year, and they try, and then obviously they're losing Tyreek Hill because of the Mahomes contract and the Kelsey contract and some of the other guys that they had to sign. So with the conference being what it is, that's a team that, they're still a first-tier team. You can't say that they're not. They're still a first-tier team, but I don't feel as good about them going into this season as I had the last couple of years. I really haven't. And Patrick Mahomes could go out and he could win the MVP and he'd get right back to the Super Bowl and shut me up. But
right, I think a lot of people think they're going to be a wild card team this year.
Yeah.
Because of the difficulty of that division. Denver hasn't had a quarterback in 7 years. You've had the coaching situation, the GM situation in Las Vegas for 3 years. Mm-hmm. You now have another new coach there. When you think of where Kansas City is, losing Tyreek Hill, that's big. Tyreek Hill is such a presence for Patrick Mahomes, and every time you turned on, the highlights, there goes Tyreek Hill going and making a play. Like you cannot, you don't replace that. Now I know that Patrick Mahomes will, like Aaron Rodgers, who loses Devontae Adams.
And he lost Jordy Nelson. He's lost Randall Cobb. He's lost a lot of the guys he's loved. But my counter argument to that, because he's never fallen off when he's lost those guys, Devontae Adams this year. But prior to Devontae Adams, was there ever a guy as talented and as fast as Tyreek Hill that Aaron Rodgers was dealing with? And the answer is no.
No. I mean, he makes everybody better. And that's when you're paying your quarterback $50 million a year, or in the case of Patrick Mahomes, $45 million a year, they have to be good enough to camouflage, wherever the weaknesses may be on their offense. And they have to be able to take young wide receivers coming right out of college and make them into the studs immediately because they are so good. They're able to communicate. They're able to show a player what to do. This is what I want you to do. This is what I'm thinking about you need to do. This is the way they're going to play you, that kind of thing.
Well, the reality of the position is when you make up 30% of the salary cap, there's going to be deficiencies in your roster, and you hope that the quarterback is good enough to cover those deficiencies up.
And we saw that last night when it came to Josh Allen. And the other thing, too, is that the teams I thought that had the best offseason, the Jets were one of those teams. That meant free agency, that meant draft, and that meant, a coaching staff that's together now for, the second year. And there's a lot of continuity there, but there's also a lot of problems there. But I thought the Jets, I thought the Bills, I thought the Jags, the Raiders, and the Chargers all had great off seasons.
Yeah.
And the Bengals, by the way, and did what they needed to do because the Bengals, think about this. The Bengals are the one team, I think, and the only team that has over 90% of their offensive yardage gainers back on their team. And they have almost their entire defense back.
Yeah. That's it. That in the NFL is rare.
4 new starting offensive linemen. And remember, Joe Burrow got through the playoffs last year as the most sacked quarterback. I think he was sacked 14 times in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are underrating them going into the season, maybe because they feel like it was this wild run to the Super Bowl that can't happen again. The conference is stacked, but that's a team I think that is being overlooked in the preseason. And by the way, we've talked a lot about Josh Allen. Just another reminder, everybody that's listening probably knows this, but in the 2018 draft, the Jets and Giants both had an opportunity to take Josh Allen, and the Giants took Saquon Barkley, and the Jets took Sam Darnold. And that's why we're going into another season where both these teams are going to blow. Boomer and Gio on the Fan and CBS Sports Network. Just getting started on our first Football Friday of the season. We've got CeeLo coming in here to give us an update in just a couple of minutes. I got to get a C4. You got to give him a read. And let's go.
Let's go, baby. It's a Football Friday.